LD. The following is a paid commercial program paid for by Rich Dad Operating Company and does not reflect the opinions or advice of KRLD or CBS Radio.
This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. It's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And today we're talking about something that's, impinging upon all of our thoughts and hopes and dreams and concerns right now. And this is this thing of ISIS and, Muslims. And my friend Trump is saying we should, not let any Muslim in until we figure this whole thing out. And, and the other day I was going on Fox Television, the Maria Bartiromo show. And generally I speak on money and money issues, and instead they asked me about being Muslim. I said, I'm not Muslim, but I am Japanese. And the reason there's a correlation between Muslim and Japanese was I was born after World War II, and on my mother's side of the family, they had everything taken from them. The U.S. government took everything from them and shipped them off to these internment camps. And so by the time I was born, the prejudice against Japanese was very, 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 very strong. Very strong. I remember when I was on my way to Vietnam, here I'm a U.S. Marine going to Vietnam. I'm in California, liberal California, and I go to apply for rent, and I knock on the door of the landlord or the person taking the rent, and they said, we don't rent to Japs here. So I understand, but I'm not Muslim. But anyway, that's what I told Maria. I said, I understand that there's a lot of reaction and all this. Trump says that, I think, foolish comment about keeping Muslims out, but his ratings go from 30% to 38%. So today we're discussing that, but more importantly, what can you do? We need better understanding between, Muslims and everybody else and different religions and races and all that. We need to understand each other better. And also, what can you do? What can you do in case you're at a Christmas party and somebody whips out an AK or an AR and starts shooting? What do you do? So it's going to be a full-blown program. We have 3 different guests. And our first guest today, ironically, is my doctor. And I ran into him at the television station because he was going out as I was coming in to talk about, I thought money, but I talked about the Muslim thing. So I wanted to have Dr. Sudi Jasser. He is the founder and president of American Islamic Forum for Democracy, AIFD. So he's a leader on this thought. He's been on CNN, CBS, Fox, MSNBC, and BBC. So he's well-versed. He's an American Muslim. He's also, like me, he served in the U.S. Navy. I served in the U.S. Marine Corps. So we have he has an American point of view on this issue with ISIS and Muslim and hatred and discrimination. And like I said, they want to lock people out and put them in internment camps. And what else are we going to do? It's back to race phobia, whatever you call it, xenophobia. So welcome to the program, Dr. Jasser.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Robert. This issue is so central to freedom, to our protection, our security. Thanks for having me.
What is your point of view? Number one on ISIS, what do they want? What are they doing? How dangerous are cells? And what do you think of my friend Trump? And I speak freely because that's what I want here.
Well, I'll tell you, Robert, I think our country from both sides of the spectrum is unfortunately using the Muslim issue to pander to voters and trying to get some poll numbers. And they're both doing the same thing, Hillary and Trump, sort of the Trump-Clinton phenomena of looking at Islam as one monolith. So the left, with Hillary, take her talking points from the Qatar Foundation and sort of the power structure in Islam, that Islam is perfect, it's peaceful, let's not offend them, let's not call it radical Islam. That sort of lets the theocrats off the hook. It doesn't allow reformists to have a seat at the table, and it doesn't look at the problem because the ISISes of the world don't come out of thin air. They're coming from the boot camps and the cauldrons of the countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Egypt of the Muslim Brotherhood, where you have hundreds of millions of people involved in political movements, some of which end up in violent extremism like ISIS, but others are part of the milieu of radicalization, as we saw with these folks in San Bernardino. They didn't just all of a sudden get weapons and wear the uniform of ISIS. They were wearing the jersey of ISIS for a while, of sort of being part of the team for years, and we were finding out since 2012, and the Muslim community has not been engaged. So you look at the comments like from Mr. Trump, that's the other side of the equation, which is, again, to look at Islam as one monolith, that we're not diverse, that we don't have debates going on, that there's no Muslims that can be part of the solution, and say, let's just shut down immigration. And I have said, as an American Muslim, that we should put a pause on all immigration till we start to vet for jihadist ideology. But for a presidential applicant to say that ultimately just Muslims, you're actually, Robert, taking the strongest weapon that we have in America, which is our warriors for freedom, our warriors of the Muslim community who can push back and say that we need to reform and we need to counter these ideas. And what you're doing is surrendering. So both Hillary and Trump, in their pandering in some ways, are surrendering to the very ideology and saying, well, then ISIS dominates Muslims and let's just forget it and shut down America. And it's really against what the Founding Fathers did when they pushed back against theocracy back in the 18th century.
That's fantastic, but what is your point of view? How does it feel as an American Muslim when your whole being, your spiritual beliefs and all that are criticized, under attack, and discriminated against and misunderstood?
Yeah, I can't tell you. My heart breaks. I served my country 11 years as a naval officer. I feel that this country has not only the beacon of liberty, and it's based on an immigrant ideology. My parents escaped persecution in Syria in the 60s and came here because we could practice our faith more freely than...
Video statement of what Islam is. I think most people don't understand what Muslims and Islam is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the issue, is we need to have a national conversation. I mean, our country was founded on conversations about religion and the development of a Bill of Rights, whose First Amendment was an establishment clause. Americans know that our first freedom is religious liberty. So that is our best weapon against ISIS. So let's have a conversation about which Islam is dominating, who's Islam, and we can't do the bromides of, well, Islam is peaceful, so let's just forget it, because that's not going to solve the problem. And we also can't just sort of blindly say that all Muslims are the problem. So bottom line is I'd ask your listeners to engage our Muslim reform movement. Go to our website at aifdemocracy.org and look at our declaration, print it out, take it to your local mosque, talk to your Muslim friends about that declaration. If they believe in those principles and want to work with us to drive a movement of reform, no different than our founding fathers. Our founding fathers were not priests. They were laity that loved their faith of Christianity and understood that theocracy was a problem. Muslims are going through that same time in history, so it's not just the little acts of violence that are barbaric, but are simply a future Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, Egypt. That reform can start and has to start in America because we have the laboratory of freedom to do that.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments, your viewpoint. Also, he's a great medical doctor. And his website, again, is aifdemocracy.org. Please start understanding. Even I've had the Quran in my library for a long time, and I finally got through chapter 1, but the first few pages of it. Because I think, really what we need to do is seek more understanding, not more weapons. So thank you, Dr. Jasser.
Amen. Thank you, Robert. God bless.